More on stress, we need tactics. How about meditation and mindfulness? Let's give that a shot. Let's explore that on today's show and see if we can help each other with reducing stress. There are many reasons why you could consider meditation and mindfulness. One, of course, is stress reduction. I think that that's the most common reason that anybody finds the way there. Some could say, I want to be a fantastic athlete, and somebody else might want to say, I need more focus and concentration on my duties at work or at school or as a parent or whatever it is. So there's so many good ways to do that. I think meditation and mindfulness is to direct the focus of your brain. And if you have better strategies and tools to deal with that, you're going to be a more effective human, and you're going to be the best version of yourself. And that's what we all want when we're doing these activities and things to benefit ourselves and the planet. So we're going to talk a little bit about the whys and hows. Now, I am a beginner meditator, so I'm just sharing with you the beginning phases in my life of doing this for a handful of years now. So bear with me if you have lots of experience in meditation, mindfulness. A lot of what I'm going to say is going to be elementary to you, but here we go. So I think the most important thing is to get started. Just try it. Get started with a little bit. I will touch on that as we move through here. Just try it and get started. I've said before, and many other people before me and the people that I read and learn from, they say there's no good meditation or bad meditation. There's just meditation. And you will just get better at it over time. The first time we throw a ball, you just threw a ball. You'll get better at it over time. You might not be as good now as you will be after the 100,000th time doing that, but you'll just get better with practice, and that's the idea here. It's the same thing with everything. There's a tremendous amount of research on meditation and reducing anxiety and depression. I've covered that in prior shows. I'm not going to get into that, but I do want to mention one thing because it's so timely here. This is an article from 29 years ago out of the New England Journal of Medicine. The title of the show is Psychological Stress and Susceptibility to the Common Cold, 1991, New England Journal of Medicine. The reason I'm mentioning that is here we are in 2020 with COVID-19, a virus. And listen to the background of this study here. Again, this is 1991 now, okay? Background. It is not known whether psychological stress suppresses host resistance to infection. To investigate this, we prospectively studied the relation between psychological stress and the frequency of documented clinical colds. Here's how they did it. They literally dripped viruses in people's noses. Did you catch that? Okay, so hear it out. 394 healthy subjects were given nasal drops containing one of 5 respiratory viruses. Now listen to the types of viruses here. Rhinovirus types 2914, respiratory syncytial virus, or coronavirus type 229E. Now, I said the word coronavirus here because remember that coronaviruses have been identified a long time ago and they're around us, and COVID-19 is a type of coronavirus. Interesting, okay? And an additional 26 subjects were given saline nasal drops, so they weren't given any live viruses. They were then quarantined and monitored for developments of symptoms. Okay, conclusion. Psychological stress was associated in a dose-response manner with an increased risk of acute infectious respiratory illness. And this risk was attributable to increased rates of infection rather than to an increased frequency of symptoms after infection. Stress will determine to an extent if you get sick when you're exposed to a virus or not, whether you will get sick or not when you've been exposed to a virus. Just a couple of sentences in here. Stressful life events are commonly believed to suppress host resistance to infection. And I think most people agree with that. When demands imposed by events exceed a person's ability to cope, a psychological stress response composed of negative cognitive and emotional states is elicited. Okay? Psychological stress, in turn, is thought to influence immune function through autonomic nerves, innervation of lymphoid tissue, or hormone-mediated alteration of immune cells. Stress may also alter immune responses through adoption of coping behaviors such as increased risk of increased smoking and alcohol consumption. So when we're stressed out, we make bad decisions which mess up our immune system even further, and we run into more difficulty. I reread this article before I came in today, and I came across this just gem of a statement here. Moreover, the consistency of the stress-illness reaction among 3 very different viruses, rhinovirus, coronavirus, and respiratory syncytial virus, as well as among rhinovirus types, was impressive. So they gave very different viruses, stressed people out, or saw that the stressed people would get more frequency of illness. It doesn't matter what virus it was. So very interesting. This observation suggests that stress is associated with the suppression of a general resistance process in the host, leaving persons susceptible to multiple infectious agents, or that stress is associated with the suppression of many different immune processes with similar results. If you are particularly chronically stressed, you tank your immune system's function and you become more susceptible to stuff. Therefore, exposure doesn't necessarily mean you will get sick. It's the health of the host will determine whether you get sick or not. That makes a lot more sense to us now, right? And that's why we continuously are told, particularly with COVID-19, that if somebody has a comorbidity, if somebody already has a chronic illness, which is already stressing their body or consuming energy of the body, or just decreasing your immune response in general, you're going to be more susceptible to becoming sick after exposure, becoming more sick after exposure, or unfortunately even death after exposure. Reducing stress is just incredibly important. I myself in my chiropractic office, I see people coming in, lots of people, the root cause of whatever they might be coming in with, migraine, headaches, digestive system problems have just been off the charts recently. All kinds of problems in here. And earlier on in that article, I talked about, they talked about the sympathetic, parasympathetic parts of the autonomic nervous system. Well, digestion is more of a parasympathetic phenomenon, and sympathetic is more of is fight or flight, right? So when we're more chronically stressed, we have more sympathetic stuff going on all the time. We're always in fight or flight to a certain extent, and we're suppressing our vagal activities in our body and our digestion, right? So now we don't digest well, so we've got all these digestive complications, which just sends you down another rabbit hole. If we can utilize things like meditation and mindfulness to take control of our thought and understand that such important concept that we might not be able to control all circumstances, but we can certainly control our response to a set of circumstances. Now we're talking about things that we can actually have an effect on, right? Is having a decision, how am I going to respond to that? Just pulling into a classic Tony Robbins strategy of ask a better question. If somebody says something negative to you, if there's something that's bothering you that's going on in the house, in the family, in the workplace, in the community, on earth, in the universe, whatever it might be, you can ask a better question. What is the message here I'm supposed to get? What is my reaction that would be better? What about this can be excellent that I haven't recognized yet? Whatever the question might be, you turn that question around, there you go. Well, meditation and mindfulness is helping you turn, giving you a tool to change your reaction to the set of circumstances coming at you. And I think that that's the ways to consider utilizing meditation and mindfulness to take control of your thought, to take control of your reactions to circumstances. That is in your control. I've talked about Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, and he's not the only one, but he talking about surviving the Holocaust and living your life as a beautiful person afterward, even though they have all the rights in the world to have a terrible rest of their lives. Nelson Mandela, Oprah, the list goes on and on. It just doesn't matter who had the terrible circumstances, terrible upbringings, but ends up being beautiful, giving, wonderful people for the rest of their lives. So that's mindfulness and meditation. Here's some steps now. I'll get into the steps at the end. Let me just roll along here. A couple of other tactics and hints to help you along. Turn off the news, take a media holiday. Everybody talks about this. Decrease your news consumption. You know it's all based on fear, and there's a few people that are paid a ton of money to try to direct your thoughts and your behaviors and so forth. So limit yourself there. Dr. Andrew Weil, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Tony Robbins, Peter Diamandis, they're all talking about turn off the news, take a media holiday, and so forth. Okay. Mindfulness centers you in the present moment. So you can use mindfulness, you can use meditation at any moment as well, but mindfulness is more of staying present in that moment. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. The Precious Present is a book that I read years ago. That's a good one that talks about this. Eckhart Tolle has that program called The Power of Now. He gives you lots of strategies and techniques and tactics on staying in the moment, staying right here. The past is already gone. Tomorrow's not here yet. Stay right here. That's more of a mindfulness concept. Beautiful way of thinking about things. To get there right away, breathing techniques are just so commonly used. They're used in meditation. They're used in martial arts. They're used in Qigong and Tai Chi. They're, of course, used in mindfulness. Dr. Andrew Weil uses breathing technique. You can look it up, called 4-7-8. In for 4 seconds, hold for 7, out for 8 seconds. Do not practice that when you're driving, please. Wim Hof, check out his breathing techniques. Again, please don't do that when you're driving. Dandapani, please look up his information. He has affirmations and mantras that you can utilize that can bring you back into the present moment at that moment in time, using these strategies of mindfulness when you need to. Concise choice of positive words is something that Dandapani and many others talk about. Using those positive words, especially when you're thinking about yourself. And I do this, and I did it today, and I found myself doing it. And step one is realize, gee, I'm talking about myself in my own mind right now. Am I using things that are constructive and boosting me up and building me and helping me become the person I want to be? Or am I tearing myself down? And too much of the time we're tearing ourselves down. Why do we do that? Because our brains are made to help us survive, right? As Tony Robbins would say, our brains are not there to make us feel joy and love at all times. It's there to protect us, and there we go. So we tend to live in fear. So being mindful of where we are at that moment in time, using those very carefully chosen words of, I love myself, I'm doing a great job, I'm such a wonderful gift, look at these talents and skills, the training and experience and abilities and gifts and genius that I have. These are the words that I use describing myself. So that will help you using these mindfulness techniques to bring you back into the present moment and steer your thoughts and focus in a direction that is really going to help you. Clear visualization of your strategies and techniques and having the corresponding feelings that you're looking for to cultivate those. Those are mindfulness techniques. Here is an article in 2015 from Harvard Business Review. Just 6 seconds can make you more mindful. So it's not like, once again, that we have to be a full practicing Buddha and on the mountaintop sitting in a lotus position for 30 years to get good at this. Almost all of us are not going to do that. But you can use little techniques like this. This particular article in 2015 was written by Chade Med-Tan, and Meng is a Google pioneer, award-winning engineer, and an author. Some days at work can drain you, sitting in meetings for hours on end, and every decision you need to make is difficult. All the easy decisions have already been made, and this happens to a lot of us, right? You could be a much more effective leader, co-worker, if you could approach each meeting and challenge with a fresh perspective. So using a mindfulness technique whenever you need to in the course of a day can help you do this. My colleague, says Meng, is Karen May, Vice President at Google, developed the ability to mentally recharge by taking one mindful breath before walking into every meeting. It takes her 6 seconds. She brings her full attention to one breath, resetting her body and mind. You can begin to benefit with your first mindful breath in the first 6 seconds. Try it today and see how much more present, effective, and productive you can be. So I think that's a wonderful, easy, quick technique that we can all use. Just a mindful breath to bring us back into the present moment. Dump everything that you were thinking about previously. It's all gone and in the past. Of course, yes, easier said than done and so forth. But you can do that and then focus on the meaning that is right there, the person that's in front of you, the child that you're interacting with, whatever it might be, and you can be more effective in that particular role. I'm going to get into some other people and strategies and resources in just a moment. And before, again, that I came on today, the past couple of days, I've listened to a podcast by Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss, great individuals and that he has on, and interviews that he's making. Just keep in mind, if you do go to Tim Ferriss, there are some profanities in some of the recordings. So I've just let you know that. On this one, in November of 2020, he interviewed Dan Harris. In that podcast, there are a few profanities, not a lot, just so you know it's there. They do talk about some adult themes in that. So just be aware, Anyway, so Dan Harris wrote a book called 10% Happier. And great book, written a handful of years ago. I read it. Actually, I had the audiobook. I listened to the audiobook. And it was very well done. Again, that is generously sprinkled with profanity. So if you end up getting that book, there you go. And I've mentioned that in the past. But on this interview here with Tim Ferriss, he gave us some additional background on some authors that I've become familiar with, and who have written dozens of books and really paved the way to meditation in the United States. Joseph Goldstein, Jack Kornfield, and Sharon Salzberg. Now, if, again, you have any relationship with meditation, these are individuals you already know. And if you're new to this, these people might be new to you. Dan Harris was talking about Joseph Goldstein as being one of his mentors. Tim Ferriss talks often about Jack Kornfield being one of his important mentors in the mindfulness and meditation activities that they've been doing. The three of them came together and they formed the Insight Meditation Society around 1975, and that exists in central Massachusetts. So you can find the IMS on the website dharma.org, dharma.org. And there are a variety of resources on there, lots of books. There are audios, there are meditations available and so forth. So you can become very familiar with all the information there. Then, so that's on the East Coast. On the West Coast is the Spirit Rock Meditation Center, started by Jack Kornfield. And apparently, if I have this right, this is where Dan Harris took his first live multi-day meditation retreat, where you don't talk for days on end. And in his book, Dan Harris talks about his experience in detail during this 10-day period. And it was a really fun, fascinating, and meaningful path of reading about his experience there. It was just through these interesting twists and turns in his life that led him to that point. And just very quickly, Dan Harris became infamous when he had the meltdown on TV, on one of the morning newscasts, and he just froze up, and that led him to meditation. Anyway, so Dan Harris himself, he's now written a couple of books on it. He now has an organization on meditation. I believe he actually has an app on meditation as well. So there's a resource. As you probably already know, there are apps on your phones right now on meditation. One of them is Calm. That's very popular. There are others. So look around, get started, just start to experiment, and there you go. So the Spirit Rock Meditation Center, spiritrock.org, various resources on there as well. Joseph Goldstein, Jack Kornfield, and Sharon Salzberg, the three of them have written dozens and dozens of books, and they have recordings and websites and videos and so forth. So you can just dig in and really get your feet wet and look at that. So there you go. Dr. Joe Dispenza is one of my favorites, and I've spent some time in 2020 with Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, hoping that as our corona jail, as I call it, coronavirus dies down, coming in 2021, that we'll be able to do more in live events and so forth. And I can see myself attending one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's live programs for sure in the future. Go to his website, great information. I paid for his 90-day self-study program that you pay for, and it was really wonderful. I actually did it twice this summer in 2020. I can't suggest it more. There's more time commitment now, so if you're ready for a deep dive, that's one way to go. If you're not quite ready for that, there is some time commitment to that. It is going to be a daily practice. You can go at your own pace, but there's a lot of time involved. There's some videos and reading and audios and so on and so forth. So, but it was really great, and I love that. I just want to let you know that one of the things Dr. Joe Dispenza, with his meditation techniques and tactics, he is gathering scientific data and information, particularly in the past few years. In one experiment, he took 120 people, or he actually talks about an experiment, 120 people, 10 minutes of meditation, 3 times a day for 4 days. And they were getting into changing frustration, resentment, and fear, and trading that in for appreciation, gratitude, and thankfulness. And that was the focus of these meditations. What they found was immunoglobulin A is one of the primary defenses for viruses and bacteria in your immune system. And it's one of the best flu shots you'll ever get, as he likes to say. There was a 50% increase in IgA level in 4 days with these people that were meditating for 10 minutes, 3 times a day. Again, it's the best flu shot that you can ever get. Very interesting. I'm saying this now at this time in 2020, in December of 2020. They also measured 7,500 gene regulations, and in 4 days, 2 genes that suppress cancer growth and tumors are activated and upregulated. That's pretty powerful. Genes that stimulate stem cells that repair damaged tissue were upregulated. They tested for those. Genes that were upregulated for anti-cancer, anti-aging, anti-heart disease, anti-stroke, anti-neurodegenerative, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, neurogenesis activations. So all of these genes were upregulated in just 4 days. You can change your genetic destiny in 4 days was the conclusion here. And there are various other studies that are talking about this. This is not the only one. They've also found that if you meditate for 60 days, 5 days a week, you can lengthen your life. How do we know this? By studying the telomeres, the end of your chromosomes. You can actually get your telomere length studied, and the telomere length goes up on these people that are meditating on a regular basis. That's improving your genetic destiny with something as simple as this. We know that there are things that can tear down your genetic destiny and shorten your telomeres, and so forth, which shortens the lifespan of your cells, which can technically shorten your lifespan, if you will. But there are also things that can build up your telomere length, and one of them is now meditation. There's some other meditation resources. Louise Hay House. Go on Hay House's website. Downloads, audios, books, guidance, videos, all kinds of stuff. Hay House, set up by Louise Hay. Dr. Joe Dispenza that I mentioned. Deepak Chopra is another one. Before I did Dr. Joe Dispenza's lengthy one, I did a 20-day or 21-day, I think it was a 21-day meditation challenge with Dr. Deepak Chopra. This one was great. You can find his information on one of his websites. It was a phone-based, about 15 minutes a day. I liked his meditation style because he had some audio introductory activities. He said, today's theme is going to be about gratitude. Today's theme is going to be about energy. Today's theme is going to be about whatever. And so he would focus on that day, a particular mantra and a particular word, and he would explain that and introduce it for a few minutes. And then he got into a meditation, a brief meditation, maybe 5, maybe 7 minutes. Part of it was guided, so he would guide you, and then part of it had a silence area, and that was it. So that was a great meditation. That's a nice way to, again, get your feet wet. And then I moved on to Dr. Joe Dispenza after that. You've got deepakchopra.com, chopra.com, chopracentermeditation.com with Oprah and Deepak working together there. I mentioned dadapani.org. He's got great information there. I've listened to some of his stuff. A great way of doing it. Dr. Andrew Weil, drwild.com. He had his the book Spontaneous Happiness, and he has some meditation tracks and things that he worked with and collaborated with other people. So you can look at drwild.com for some information there. Dan Harris, I mentioned the book 10% Happier. Again, just keep in mind that there is some adult themes in there and profanity and so on and so forth, so just be aware of that. Emily Fletcher is another great resource. Her organization, zivameditation.com. She has said on many other interviews and other people, like on impact theory and so forth, you'll hear her being interviewed. She says, and this is very clear now, stress can make you stupid and sick, because we know it changes the blood flow in your brain. It changes you from a loving and caring responses to a stress, fight or flight. Stress, fight or flight will definitely make you stupid, because it just takes the blood flow away from your frontal lobe and it goes into the brain stem, so you can just be in fight or flight and just react or flee or whatever it is, right? It can make you sick. We talked about the introduction of, we know that chronic stress will affect your immune system response, which can then affect your relationship to the viruses and bacteria that will be all around us all the time for the rest of our lives. So we need to get that straightened out. Now, Emily Fletcher does a job here, and you'll see that earlier in the show I talked about this. There's a slight difference between mindfulness and meditation. You don't really have to bother yourself with that much, but mindfulness is more of getting rid of your stress in the now and being in the moment right now. That's more of a mindfulness technique. Meditation is getting rid of the stress from the past, and that's what Emily Fletcher is talking about here. Manifesting is another thing that she talks about. So mindfulness, meditation, and manifesting. Manifesting is realizing your dreams for the future and creating them now. So that's another thing that meditation can do for us as well. The Insight Meditation Society, I talked about them, Dharma and .org. And as we close out here, here's again some strategies. The first thing is just to get started. Just get started. Just say, you know, I'm watching this show with Dr. Fuller right now as an idea. I would love to decrease my stress. I would love to be the better version of myself. I would love to have more focus on concentration. I'd love to live my life as a more beautiful person. I want to be more comfortable in my own skin. I certainly want to strengthen my immune system to fight off opportunistic viruses and bacteria that are out there, so I can have a stronger immune system response, a stronger force field around me at all times. Not that we want all viruses and bacteria out, that's impossible, but we want the ones that are opportunistic to not gain a foothold and invite their friends, right? So just get started. Number one is, don't look at your phone first thing in the AM. Don't look at your phone. Try to break that habit of just looking at your phone. Some of you working with certain jobs, you're emergency personnel, you have to look at your phone, totally get that. But for the rest of us, if you don't have to look at your phone first thing, don't, because there's going to be news feeds and whatever else you're looking at that's going to send your mind typically into not a good foundation for the day. So try not to look at your phone first thing in the morning. Number two is get your spouse or your significant other involved, and get your children involved, get your kids involved. You know, now you're at home, you're probably helping your kids with education and so forth. Get them involved. Do it together as a family. Number three, meditate first thing in the morning if you can. So take that minute or two that you might grab your phone and get started. Meditate right then and there in bed. Why not, right? Do that first thing. Number four, use your choice. You can just completely be in silent and do it on your own in silence, or you can do a guided meditation where somebody's speaking partially or the entire time, or you can just have very soft, calming music that's playing, or even sounds, nature sounds. You could do that as well. Number five, Dadapani suggested start with 1 minute. Start with 1 minute. We can all afford a minute, so just try a minute, just see what happens. Just gather some data and get started. You can also, and lastly, number six, you can try meditation also again in the evening, before bed, while you're in bed, and if it helps you fall asleep, that's a wonderful gain as well. Get started. Let me know how it makes out for you trying meditation and mindfulness for a better version of yourself. I'm Dr. Scott Fuller.